People are starting to study for the UCAT earlier and earlier, but what scores should you be getting at each point in time? When you're starting, what percentile is normal? By the end of the holidays and start of year 12, what should you be? When should you get to the 90th percentile, the 95th percentile, and what's a good score? I have all the information for you on the next slide, so stay tuned. Now, everyone's different, and I scored in the 99th percentile, my students have scored in the 99th percentile, and this is what I think for most people a rough roadmap would be. So, most people, I think the latest you can leave it realistically is the end of year 11, that holidays between year 11 and year 12. If you're starting in year 12, that I think is too late, unless you are rural or remote or there's some sort of other scheme. I think for the general metro person, you've got to start at the latest in the year 11, 12 holidays. Now, where you start, what your initial scores are, largely do not matter. If you start and you get the 10th percentile or the 50th percentile or the 80th percentile, like, it doesn't really matter because you can improve and where you start is just it's just an initial point. You haven't implemented any strategies yet. That being said, I've said the target percentile is 30 to 70 because if you are genuinely like, if you're getting like less than 30%, if your percentiles are really low when you start, you should speak to someone who's done the test and can advise you because there might simply be too much of a jump to go from like 10th percentile to realistically needing at least 93rd in like whatever time period, if it's 8 months. If you've got a couple of years, don't worry too much. But if you're at this year 11, year 12 holidays and you're below the 30th percentile, I'm not saying to give up, but speak to someone first about like giving you a realistic picture because you might have to put so much time to jump a 20th to a 95th that it might not be worth the ATAR trade-off that you make. But most people would be somewhere in the range of 30th to 70th when they start. The diagnostic mocks have a bit of an issue. So another option is just to do a rough, like even just do a rough time set or untimed set. Bearing in mind you probably won't finish. I know no one who can finish at the start. I couldn't, and none of my students could finish all the questions. But you could also just do a rough gauge, work out, am I getting 70%, 80%, untimed or timed, and then just put them into a UCAT score calculator as well. Because sometimes the diagnostic ones are a bit unreliable because they're so short. What I'm trying to say is where you start is not so important, but you need to like adjust your percentiles accordingly. Somewhere in the range of 30 and above, you should be fine. Now, the key checkpoint for me is where you want to be at the start of year 12. Okay, at the end of the year 11, 12 holidays, what percentile should you be at? Because once year 12 starts, and for me, it was 5 subjects. We had a SAC or like which is like a test which counts for your actual ATAR, and that happens, once a week, once every 2 weeks. Then you have a big SAC week at the end of some terms, and it's very hard to practice the UCAT. My general contention here is that it's very hard to improve your UCAT score a lot whilst you're also studying year 12. So I've advised against a linear improvement here. I haven't said, all right, if you're at the 50th percentile 8 months out and you want to be at the 99th percentile, at the target date, you shouldn't go like up 10 percentiles every month. I've advised against that. I think you need to make the bulk of your improvement on the holidays and sort of get to here because it's a pretty slow drag once school actually starts. So if it was me and I was starting at the end of year 11, and I've just got to the holidays, I've done my initial diagnostic tests and whatever, I'm at the 30th percentile, I would want to be at least, and these are at minimums, at least the 80th percentile by the time I start year 12. That's a big jump, but the holidays are the best time to use that because you have a big year 11, year 12 holidays. You've got most people have 2 weeks at the end of term one and 2 weeks before they sit the UCAT if you're sitting it in the term two holidays. So I'd want to be at least the 80th, preferably the 90th, but at least the 80th, because that takes a little bit of the pressure off. For example, me saying, right, I'm starting year 12, I'm at the 80th percentile, the minimum cutoff is probably the 93rd, so I've got to go up 13 percentiles whilst also balancing school. So at least the 80th, if you're somewhere in between 80 and 90, I think that's good. Most people will be below this though. It's a pretty harsh cutoff, but that's just to say I think most people should do more on the holidays because realistically, most people are not going to get the right cutoff score anyway. Now, if you're above 90, push it to 99. Just push it as high as you possibly can on the holidays. Then during term, it's hard really to budget for much drastic improvements, which is why I've lowered it down. So at the start of year 12, if you're somewhere between 80 and 90, by the end of term one, somewhere between 90 and 95, and by the end of term two, somewhere between 95 and 99. Now, people on test day, some people do a lot better than what their scores are. Some people do a lot worse. So I would want to reach a position of safety in terms of my score, a little bit of a buffer. What I mean by that, let's say you take the interview cutoff score. Let's say it's 380 for an interview. I would want to be at least 50 higher than that in my practice exams in the event that something goes different. Obviously, you aim as high as possible, but don't stop. Like once you hit 380 and think, I'm safe now, because anything can happen on exam day. Now, a few important questions to answer. Number one, what if you're starting prep earlier? There's a lot of people starting at the start of year 11, mid-year 11, end of year 10, whatever. Important things are, number one, it doesn't matter where you start in terms of your initial scores and percentile. If you're 30th percentile, don't panic. Less than 30th, speak to someone, I'd say, but you've got more time. Second important thing is your main target should be to get to at least the 80th percentile by the start of year 12. And if you're starting earlier, I think you want to get at least to the 90th percentile by the start of year 12. Now, you've got to come up with your own roadmap. You actually need to just beef up this section. So let's say you're starting at the start of year 11, then your goal should be at least 90th percentile by the start of year 12. So then you'll start maybe at the 50th percentile, whatever. Then you might not have that same holiday period. And so maybe you just want to say, all right, I want to be 50th percentile, start of year 11, 70th percentile, mid-year 11, and then 90th percentile, start of year 12. I think that's fair game. If you're ahead of the percentiles, don't stress. Just push it as high as you can and just go for the next goal. If at the start of your year 12, you're already at the 95th percentile, then just aim to be at the 99th as quick as possible. And then you can hit maintenance. If you're behind, then that's where we start to get issues because you're going to have to play catch up in year 12 whilst also balancing these subjects, and that's going to be tricky. So try and get help early, but if you're behind the percentiles, I'd encourage you just to speak to someone and get if you're not getting tutoring, get tutoring. If you're not on, Medify or MedEntry, get one of those two. Like try and optimize whatever you can because you at least are aware that you're behind. Now, which of the jumps here is hardest to make? The most important cutoff is being at least at the 80th or 90th percentile by the start of year 12. That, I think, is the hardest step. From wherever you start to hitting the 90th percentile is the hardest jump to make. Going from 90 to 99, I actually don't think is that, well, 99 is a bit tricky, but going from 90 to 97, 98, 99 is probably easier than the jump from 30 to 90 because you have less mistakes to focus on and it's a bit easier to get coaching around that. Okay. Now, practically, what are the take homes from this? Number one, doesn't matter where you start. You can always adjust for that. Number two, just make sure you have targets where you are. Number three, if you're not hitting your targets, get help from someone. Hopefully this roadmap is helpful. If you want further information, book in a chat with me. It's completely free. I'll go over some roadmaps and give you some targets, and that'll hopefully set you up and give you some milestones to aim for and give you some steps in the right direction as well. The place to do that is the link in the description, and it's all completely free and you get free resources as well. So why not do it? It'll help you, I guarantee it, at the minimum. Check out my other videos on the channel. There'll be plenty more UCAT material coming out, so stay subscribed just to be aware that more and more is going to come out every week. And I'll see you guys around.